You're listening to the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast, where we champion music of all genres, and we believe vinyl is king.
Vinyl is king.
Welcome to the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast. Today's show is a segment that we call the LP Interview, and our special guest today is singer-songwriter Trapper Haskins. He joined us here in the studio in Nashville to talk about his career and recent release, Blood in the Honey. It's our October singer-songwriter record of the month. Trapper has autographed all the copies in the store for our members. So sit back and listen to Trapper Haskins talk about vintage baseball, boat making, 2,300 miles down the Mississippi River, and everything you should know about Blood in the Honey. '85 Supply is the official show sponsor for the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast. '85 Supply is a full-service nationwide merch company. They specialize in screen printing, embroidery, logistics, graphic design, and custom-branded promotional products. From printed t-shirts to the most custom products available, '85 Supply offers over 500,000 products to customize. '85 Supply is trusted by some of the largest brands in the nation, from organizations like MTV, LaCroix Sparkling Water, Spotify, and more. '85 Supply's reputation of quality precedes them. In fact, I have personally worked with '85 Supply for years. Almost all the merch products we carry at the Blind Tiger Record Club were designed, printed, and manufactured with '85 Supply. I tell them what I want, and they help bring the vision to light. Whether you're a touring rock band, an event or organization, or a podcast and radio show like us, we highly recommend reaching out to our friends at '85 Supply for your next project that needs branded product. Go to 85supply.com or email info@85supply.com to get started. You can also get 5% off your first order. Simply mention Blind Tiger Record Club via email or over the phone with your rep. It's that simple. No coupon codes or anything to remember. Just tell them that Blind Tiger Record Club sent you and you get 5% off your entire first order. Once again, visit 85supply.com or email info@85supply.com to get started on your next merch product. Well, I am very excited to be on air today to talk to everyone about one of my favorite people in Nashville, Trapper Haskins.
I appreciate that. Glad to be here.
Trapper, I thought it was really, I wanted to mention this to everybody because, you know, in this town, in Music City and being in the music industry, like, it's very common for either people to hand, you know, demos in for certain things or for me to meet someone that's, I mean, obviously in the industry. But you and I knew each other, I mean, what, for like 2 years? And I didn't know you did anything in music. You didn't know I did anything in music.
Correct, yeah.
So our boys played baseball together. That's how we met. And I remember I was like, man, that guy's interesting because you'd show up with these, you always had a unique mustache or something going on that was just not the norm, handlebar or something, you know. And I'm remember even thinking a few times before I knew you did vintage baseball that, man, he looks like one of those old time baseball players.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But you, in 2013, you co-founded the Tennessee Associations for Vintage Baseball, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge baseball fan.
Yeah. So briefly tell, because I think that's so unique. Like you were the first person I ever met that even did that.
Okay.
I mean, I'd seen the league, like I think there was one in East Nashville where they did.
That team is part of our league.
Okay, yeah.
So we have a statewide league called the Tennessee Association of Vintage Baseball. And we play baseball by the rules of 1864, which is, I mean, you would recognize it as a baseball game, but the rules are a little bit different than what our boys played by.
And you dress like that too, right? Like the uniforms are...
Right. We wear what we call their Civil War era uniforms, although it's not related to the Civil War.
Right, just from that era. Yeah.
Sure. We have, 1864 rules. We wear wool hats and the thick canvas pants and the long sleeves.
That's pretty cool.
And we play. There's no gloves, so it's a barehanded game.
That's the most incredible part to me.
It's no gloves, but the fielders can catch the ball on one bounce, and the batter's still out. So I've always.
Well, you got to get something. They're not giving you a glove. You got to at least get the bounce.
That's right. That's the compromise. But the reason that we specifically play 1864 is because just like in today's where sports will meet in the wintertime and change the rules, in the winter of 1864-65, they changed that rule in baseball so that in 1865 you had to catch the ball on the fly.
Okay.
And so that's why we play 1864. But I've always loved historic stuff, whether it's boats or baseball or music or whatever. And so when I learned about this sport, vintage baseball, I just got just completely infatuated with it and getting back to the roots of the game. Really.
Yeah. Well, and you're one of those kind of guys that I totally can relate to, that when you're into something, you're kind of all in, right?
All in.
Yeah.
All in. Yeah. Much to my wife's, I don't know, dismay.
I get it. It makes for very interesting conversations, but yeah, sometimes you can be all in. So
obsessive is the word she uses. Obsessive.
Well, I mean, one of the things, so when I found out you did music, and then I, was reading some of your bio and stuff when you first told me you did music. And one of the other things that kind of caught my eye, I knew about the baseball, but what I didn't know about was that you also were a boat builder, right? Like was it Maine? You went up and...
Yeah. I mean, I'm born and raised in Memphis, but when I was 21, my wife and I got married, and 2 weeks after our wedding, we actually got married in Franklin, Tennessee, but 2 weeks after the wedding, we moved to New England so I could learn to build boats. Again, my sort of passion for going back to the roots of something. Right. I had got a friend of mine's dad had bought a boat, and we went out a few times, and it was a fiberglass boat. We went out on some lake in Tennessee, and I was like, this is really fun. What came before? And so, of course, that just led me to old wooden boats in Maine. And so we moved up there, and I spent 2 years in a wooden boat shop doing an apprenticeship, a full-on apprenticeship, learning to build a boat from lofting it on the floor, building the whole thing out of wood, and then launching it. And that was the start of things. It's
so unique. Like, I mean, you see people that get into something, whether it's vinyl even, but that's a little more universal than boat building. I mean, you're not going to meet that many people that know how to build old wood boats.
Well, you do up in New England, which is why we ended up moving up there, because around here you've got the aluminum bass boats, you got fiberglass sailboats, and that kind of thing. But it's much more of a part of the culture on the West Coast and up in New England. There's a culture of wooden boats up there.
Really?
So, yeah, it's sort of like if you're a musician, and you're trying to make it as a songwriter, Nashville's kind of the place to be. Well, if you want to get into wooden boats, New England's kind of the place to be.
Which is why you moved.
That's why we moved up there. Right.
And so how many years do you...
We lived there for, I want to say we lived there for 5 years. We lived there long enough to decide that the good Lord made us Southerners, and it was time to move back to warmer climates. So
that's right.
We moved from Maine. We left in September and moved to New Orleans just to get a complete change of culture and climate.
And then I also read in your bio that you took one of the boats you built and did a trek, 2,300 miles down the Mississippi River.
Yeah. So that's that when we, at the end of my apprenticeship, so I spent 2 years building boats, or 2 years apprenticing. And during that time, nights and weekends, I built this Mississippi River yawl, which is like an 18-foot open rowboat. And after I finished my apprenticeship, sort of my graduation present to myself, I guess, was my wife and I, we took it out to Minneapolis. We took it out to Minnesota with the intention of taking it all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. And the trip was supposed to take 90 days, and it ended up taking 15 years, but we did it. We went from the headwaters of the Mississippi down to the Gulf of Mexico. So that first trip, we made it all the way down to New Orleans. And then in 2018, we finished the last 100 miles with the kids on board.
That's awesome.
So we were newlyweds when we did the trip. We'd been married for 2 years. And then when I was 40 years old, we fixed the boat up and did the last 100 miles. I'm currently working on a book about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because you do some writing as well.
I try to, yeah.
So I saw you. Obviously, you've done some stuff like with Sports Illustrated and the Wooden Bat. I'm assuming that's around vintage baseball.
Yeah, I wrote an article about Wrigley Field for Sports Illustrated, and
that's another thing. You and I've got the Cubbies.
Cubbies, baby.
Yeah.
Cubbies. 2016 was a good year. It was a good year.
Yeah.
But I wrote an article for Sports Illustrated and I've written a couple of articles about vintage baseball for various publications. But right now I'm working on a memoir, travelogue about that Mississippi River trip that we took.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons I wanted to kind of mention all this stuff, I mean, it is interesting, but it also, when I think about songwriters, songwriters are only as good as the material that they're pulling from in life. And I just think like some of these things you've done has, given you a perspective that obviously, bleeds into your work.
Yeah. I agree with that. It's definitely, if you're going to sing about hard times and being a carpenter, it helps to have been a carpenter and had some hard times.
Yeah. It's a little harder to be authentic, without the experience. It just is.
Agree.
You can kind of move into your music. When you first said, "Hey, I want to send you my record," when we were talking at the baseball field.
At the baseball field.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you do this? Yeah, I do. What? And so I was like, yeah, I'd love to hear it. I mean, my expectations, honestly, were you were going to send me a folk singer-songwriter acoustic album, which I'm sure would be okay, but didn't really have any expectations beyond that. Okay. And when I got it, I remember the first time I played it, it reminded me when I first heard The Frames and Glenn Hansard. And then even, going into the Swell season and then all of his solo records, like one of the things I really like about him is he is a singer-songwriter, but there's like this undertone of kind of intensity and earnestness that I'm always really drawn to. Like same with like a lot of like current bands, even some guys that do throwback sound stuff. Like the ones that I'm really drawn to are the guys that are like, you just feel like there's something kind of intensely going on with the experience emotionally on that song.
Yeah.
And so when I first started playing it, I was like, oh, this is what this is kind of reminding me of. It's more the tone, not sonic,
I got you.
But as I kept listening to the record, I just kept getting more and more into it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really good.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
So yeah, so after Maine, you kind of moved around North Carolina, New York. When you boated down to New Orleans, did y'all just stay there? Is that why you?
We didn't. We came back there 3 years later after you
saw it from the boat trip. Yeah, you said, hey, let's live here.
That's kind of sort of. We got there for the boat trip, went back to Maine for a few years, and then we moved down there and I worked at a furniture factory during the day, and I was a street musician at night. So it was sort of.
And that's one of those places you could do that.
Oh man, it was fantastic. It was so good.
At a pawn shop in New Orleans, a few blocks off of St. Charles, early one Christmas Eve. Sterling silver with a turquoise stone. It was etched with arrows, snakes, and
So you kind of have a little bit of that kind of pouring in. I mean, obviously you're from Memphis, so you come from the land of blues and soul and Stax Records and all that.
And I'd love to say that I grew up listening to that stuff, but as a kid of the 80s, I was, MTV was where it was at.
Yeah,
it was all Guns N' Roses and, Tears for Fears, which is great stuff, but it's not Memphis stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got into my 20s that I really started to appreciate the music that came from Memphis.
Right.
But
sort of your lineage in a way.
Hopefully.
Yeah. You came back to Tennessee when, 2011, sometime around there?
Yeah, we moved back in 2008, I guess, and we bought a farm. We had saved up a little bit of money. We bumped around the country. I was doing these boat jobs. So I lived in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the Lower Peninsula of Michigan, upstate New York, doing all of these boat jobs. And we moved back to Tennessee. We bought this 12-acre farm, and we lived there for a few years. I had a cabinet shop there. I was writing songs and playing writers' rounds in Nashville. And then the recession hit, and I sort of lost the wood shop, and we ended up moving from the farm in Grundy County up closer to Nashville because there were at least some commercial construction jobs going on.
Right.
And so I took those jobs on, still writing at night, still playing writers' rounds, and started putting a band together at that time, trying to make a go of it.
Is that the Trapper Haskins and the Bitter Swill?
Yeah, the Bitter Swill. Bitter Swill.
Yeah, Bitter Swill, yes. So you guys did an EP on My Way Back Home. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that the one that you were saying is it's all covers except for?
Yeah, I wrote one song on there, but the rest of them are all holy blues songs from the 1920s and 30s.
Okay.
That I had found on the Library of Congress website. Man, there's just a treasure trove of great old songs, and I started picking through those and found some really cool old gospel tunes, which that's the stuff that sort of attracts me. That seems to be a theme with me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Getting attracted to the older side of things.
Yeah. It reminds me of have you heard Bonnie Light Horseman?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, like that first album, their new one's a little different, but the first one they did was same thing. It was like very old, like folk standard, like from, I feel like even pre-1800s.
Sure, yeah. I think there's some old English ballads
Yeah.
on that. Yeah, that's such a good record.
Yeah.
Lord, I'm on my way up to Canaan land. I'm on my way up to Canaan land. I'm on my way up to Canaan land. I'm on my way, glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. Had a mighty hard pie, but I'm on my way. Had a mighty hard time, but I'm on my way. It's a mighty hard climb, but I'm on my way. On my way, glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. All along the way, Satan lies waiting every night and day. Satan lies waiting. Every shout and say, get behind me, Satan. I'm on my way, glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way.
Then you do a full-length record with that band, and let's see, that one was Further Down This Mountain.
That was
No, wait.
Alluvium. Yes.
Alluvium, yeah,
Yes, we
that's
put
right.
out a full-length record in 2010 called Alluvium. And then the next year is when we did that gospel EP. And, we toured regionally.
Oh, you did the album first, not the EP. Okay.
That's right. Yep. And we toured regionally and went up to, we played down in Alabama and up in Ohio and stuff, did some regional tours, got played on Lightning 100 and, tried to make a go of it. And then, things happened and it sort of petered out after a while. And I hung up the guitars for a few years, and I was just I was over it,
Yeah.
I just sort of, you feel like you're.
It can be exhausting.
It's exhausting
doing that for
Yeah.
a bit, and if it doesn't, click in a way that makes it sustainable on its own, I mean, it absolutely
Right.
can tire you out.
Right.
And sometimes I think a break's a good thing because a lot of times people just push through it thinking this is what I do and this is who I am,
Right.
and then you just get stuck, in a rut, and it's not good creatively. It's not good, for you emotionally. It's definitely not good for families and marriage and sustainability.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And by this time, I'm married and I've got, gosh, my kids were probably in preschool at the time when I hung it up.
Which makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need it. Yeah. So you needed a season to kind of do that.
Right. So,
well, one of the things I always like to look for when I listen to old stuff, when I say old stuff, I mean like previous works before we, because obviously the album that I want to talk about mostly tonight is your most recent release, which is the full length Blood and Honey. Well, I guess you actually did you did an EP after that, didn't you, with the demos? Which one came first?
So the demos, there's this demo that I have called Further Down This Mountain.
Right.
Those were the demos for the songs that ended up on Alluvium. So that's actually the oldest thing that I've got up online is a digital demo. So those are the demos.
That's what I thought, because you've got some songs that kind of repeat on the two, but the other, obviously the demo version's a little more acoustic.
Yeah, right. So there's a solo acoustic demo, and those are I probably put that out in 2009. So that would have been the year before Alluvium. Yeah.
And then Alluvium is that one. There's moments on there that remind me, even I hear like 90s rock influence even occasionally, on them. But the one song because I always try to find a connection point between what was he doing there and how did he get to here.
Okay, yeah.
And
the bridge between the two.
or just even like, he's just scratching the surface of what's going to be on this next album. And I thought that Out of State Tags, that was a song on that one for me where I could hear, okay, I see sonically like how he got to, it's one thing if it's like night and day world difference.
Right.
And I do think like the newer album is worlds better even from a production standpoint, but it's just more mature. It's more seasoned than that.
Yeah.
But that song in particular, did you feel like, even when you came back to this new record, was there anything, did you even think about this old stuff, or was it just sitting down and creating a new album?
Not entirely. I will say when I play live shows, there's only two songs that I still play, 2 or 3 songs I still play off Alluvium, and Out of State Tags is one of the ones that I end up playing at every show. So.
I mean, still, to me, it almost still fits, with the...
It does, and it would probably fit with Blood and the Honey, I would imagine. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
it sort of fits with those songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's not intentional, but it's just sort of... I think the sort of theme of that song sort of fits with this. Sonically, it's a little more mainstream, maybe a little more pop, or just middle of the road Americana.
I slipped into town around midnight. 17 hours on the road. Between the cold docks and trains, Lord, there ain't nothing changed in this place I no longer call home. Floodlights are shown on the courthouse, but there weren't a soul on the square. I call my generation on a radio station I ain't heard since our senior year. I ain't heard since our senior year. This is the place. This ain't the time. It's just the life that we used to live. Baby, it was yours, it was mine. Said our goodbyes, packed all my bags. I'm just a stranger in my hometown, come through without a state ties.
And this newer one, Blood and the Honey, we put this out in 2020.
Right.
The release date was the day before.
I keep saying new, but I know it's not. I know, and I honestly, like even in my club, like normally everything we've put out has come out in the last 30 to 60 days. But I know with this one, that there was only so much of a national, like you've never distributed it to retailers. So,
Right.
I just kind of was like, man, I think a lot of people haven't heard this, and I want to cover it because I think it's really strong.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we had big plans for it, and the release date was in April of 2020, and
and then COVID.
The world had other
had
other
and so that's
had
the
other
thing.
priorities.
In my book, this is still your new record, so,
it's
I'll
still-
probably stumble and say that a few times because I'm used to talking about really new stuff. But this is this still counts.
I mean,
This still counts.
for all intents and purposes, it's new.
Further Down This Mountain is an EP that you actually recorded this several years ago, but never put it out. These are, and some of these songs are on
Illuvium.
Illuvium.
Yep.
Okay. But you'd never put out any of these songs solo, and so this was kind of your first. You're coming back into music, so you go and get some of these
Right.
demos. You put this EP together.
Yeah, I hadn't put it out digitally. I had, home burned a couple of CDs, and when I'd play shows, people would buy them. And the reason that I ended up putting it out digitally, I had this fella send me a message out of the blue, and he said, "Hey, 8 years ago, I was at one of your shows in Montevideo, Tennessee, and I bought this CD, and I can't find it anywhere, and it's in some CD player that's broken." And I sort of put two and two together, and I was like, "Oh, that would have been before Illuvium." And so I went back into the computer and found the old files, and then uploaded them just for
Right,
fun, just to
right.
have them out there.
Yeah.
But they were floating out there, but it was sort of a rarity. I bet I burned. There's probably 100 CDs floating around. with
Okay.
those
Okay.
songs.
Okay.
Delta Eagle, she rode slick and fine. A streamlined flyer on the Mopac line. Across the floodplains and the cuts of vine, all the way back home. Memphis to Tallulah, Louisiana. 54, she crossed that Harahan. Never brought her back to town again. Now she's far from home. That locomotive's just a memory, like some fire-breathing ghost. And I can still hear the hissing of the rails, the smell of the coal tar creosote.
So then you get to Blood and the Honey. So the opening track is Adeline. Mm-hmm. That one, I guess, would you say is more of a traditional singer-songwriter song? But one of the things that kind of, when I was listening to it the first time, all of a sudden then you get these harmonies coming in. Who
Right.
is it that's singing the background vocals with you?
Lauren Ross sang
Lauren,
the harmony vocals
okay.
to most of the songs. Yeah, she's fantastic.
As soon as I heard that, it kind of it just caught my attention because again, I don't know what I was expecting, but there was more production and more going into this
Sure.
than what I thought would be there, and so. But I think it's a great song. What's that song about?
Well, the song is about a sort of a broken relationship with an addict, is what it's about, and the name. I don't know I can't remember where the name came from, but I remember when I wrote the song, I was in our basement. There was a bunch of tornadoes coming through Alabama that day and up towards our farm. So some of these songs actually date back to the Illuvium days. They were written just after that album. But I was in the basement when there was tornadoes like just ravishing Alabama and southern Tennessee. And so the first part that I wrote was the chorus. There's a line in there about treading water in a hurricane. And so that was one of the songs that started out with just an image of somebody struggling, sort of just like treading water in this hurricane. Of course, I had all this violent weather around me. And then I just built this story of a heroin addict around that.
I had a big bone gal from up around the way. I had a around the way. She never lift a finger, except for drawing down my pay. She sat around the house like she waiting on the judgment day. Tried that needle candy and got the taste. Tried that needle candy and got the taste. Banging hard at heaven's door for Maria full of grace. She found the light, then it's gone without a trace. Adeline, Adeline, was you treading water out in a hurricane? Adeline, Adeline, kept shoveling coal on a runaway midnight train. And I remember those Memphis songs, singing juke joint hymns. And now Adeline, your bright eyes grown so dim.
I'm not just doing these because this is the order that they're in on the album, but the second track, and it's also because part of it is like my experience listening to your album the first time when you sent it to me. Like this was kind of like the way that they came up. But so I heard that first song, I liked it, and then In the Boot Hill of Missouri came on,
Right.
and again it kind of caught me off guard because it was a little darker. That sounded different to me, and I like kind of like the arrangement of that song and everything. It's a really cool song.
Yeah, there's no chorus. It's just a story straight through.
Yeah.
There's a little musical bridge in there, but it's not typical in the sense that there's really no chorus. There's not really a melodic hook, you know?
Right.
And the guy who produced the album, he told me, he said, man, I really like that song, but I didn't like it until about the fourth or fifth time I heard it after I really got the story, because it's a story song is
Right.
what it is. So you got to sort of find a story about meeting a stranger at a bar with some scars across his knuckles, and then asked how he got the scars, and then of course he's telling the story of how he got those scars.
That's awesome. Well, it's unique the way it's put together, which is another thing that I thought was interesting. But I think it's a really strong song on the album too.
Thanks. It's funny you talk about them being, they're fleshed out and maybe bigger sounding, but they were all written just me and the acoustic guitar. So, and I still play some of these songs, a lot of these songs solo during shows. So even though there's sort of a bigger production on the record, I feel like they stand on their own as acoustic songs, because that's kind of, I wrote them on the couch with an acoustic guitar. I didn't write them in the studio with a band, because by this point the band had sort of dissolved. And so it was just me and the guitar.
Well, and I assume sometimes when you play, like it probably is just you and a guitar sometimes, right?
Yeah, often.
But I think like hearing like the way that you kind of thought through the full arrangements of these songs, like that's to me one of the things that is really makes this album stand out. I mean, they're really solid arrangements, and that song in particular, like if it's just you and acoustic guitar, it can just be a storytelling song. But the way that you build the track makes it really interesting. So anyway, I think it's a great song.
We like to call it a murder ballad with some bounce.
I met Billy in the boot heel of Missouri. He said, stay another round, son, what's the hurry? If your mind is clear and your eyes ain't going blurry, well, it ain't last call. It ain't last call. He said, I don't believe I've seen you, are you new here? Most of us just dug roots deep and grew here. No, sir, I said, I'm just passing through here. He said, ain't we all? But ain't we all? I said, how'd you get the scars there across your knuckles? From a wallet with a chain on a belt with a silver buckle. skin, somewhere within.
Another track I thought was really good was Issaquah County.
You like the murder songs, don't you?
Or
the death songs, rather. This one's not
it's
a murder.
more about the tone, like the tone and the way that you can, if doing a story song on an acoustic guitar, it doesn't matter if it's a happy story, sad story. It's gonna many times have the same effect.
Yep.
It's the production and arrangement of these songs, and so this one. You bring in is still guitar, right, on this one?
There is. I think there's a lap. Yeah, there's a lap
it's
steel
a lap
on this
steel.
one.
Yeah, and it. But again, that just kind of adds to that haunting flavor
Sure.
and of the production on this one. And so, and it also has. This is one that has a lot of really great harmonies in the chorus. So
That's great.
Yeah, tell me about this one.
My wife and I joke that this is my Jimmy Buffett song because I wrote this at the beach.
Does it sound? I'm not picturing a beach when I'm listening to it at all.
That's the irony of it. I don't sit still very well.
Okay.
And we were down at the beach as a family, and everyone's just happy to sit there and watch the waves, which I can do for a little bit. And then I get a little antsy, and I said, I gotta get up and go for a walk. So I just got up and went for a walk, and then of course this story sort of comes to mind about somebody getting in a car wreck, and then the victim's best friend ends up sleeping with his sister. Sorry. And they have a child. So anyways, I went back to the place that we were renting and got out my guitar and started writing this song. And when Mandy came back to the room, I said, hey, check this thing out that I've written. And I think she was expecting something sunny and poppy, and it is not sunny and poppy. So
it is not
like,
Margaritaville.
No, it's
It is not.
So that's my beach song.
Okay.
Slow gin, fast girls in your cousin's car one night early fall. Clean crack, a glass packs, they echoed back off the levee wall. Never made church that next morning. Never even made it back home. Parted the guardrail and the darkness just swallowed you whole. Now your sister, some night she comes by, we drive 462. Suppose in some way each of us reminds the other of you. Bouquet of plastic white roses, bottle of Bombay for a vase. The cross made of plywood are the only things marking the place. They laid you to rest up in Issaquah County. Out past the church house I never knew. I wanna come and these lowlands are drowning. Water seed now leave us land made new.
And so that song, it's also got some fun production stuff in there. There's a point after the guitar solo, I think, where it sounds almost like there's some timpani drums, but it's actually just a big sheet of steel with some piezo pickups on it and some microphones. The guy who produced this record, Rye Evans, is a welder by day, and so he's got all these metal contraptions and stuff in the studio. And so this album's actually full of there's some sounds on there that aren't exactly, they're not typical instruments. We've got some sheet steel on Issaquah County. There's a song on there about splitting wood, and so we recorded. I actually brought my split maul up to the studio, and we split some firewood. There's some brooms and chains and just assorted crap all over the record.
I think that's awesome. I like it even better now. That's really great. To me, I say the strongest song, but what I mean by that is the one that I think has the most commercial appeal, so to speak, is a song, I See That Now. That's when I kind of, because I remember when I first put this record on, I think I was making dinner or something at the house, and so I had it playing, and I kept going, hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty. When this song came on, I literally stopped what I was doing. I walked over and I picked up your album.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, what's going on here? But that song has horns in it, right?
It does. It's got, Paul Thacker and Diego Vasquez, and those two, they play with Lady Couch in town.
Okay.
That's their horn section.
Well, then this is where I was thinking, well, I know he's from Memphis, so that's why I kind of thought maybe you were pulling some of that. You know, I didn't know that you were not into all, you know, like that. I didn't know that wasn't a big influence on you, but still, like, it just I was like, this is so different because it's like a really strong singer-songwriter, you know, Americana, whatever genre we want to put it in. It's really strong just on its own, but then it's so interesting with the horns and the stuff that you layer throughout the song. Great harmonies all the way through. This one does have, when I say most commercials, it's mainly because I'm looking at the singability of the hook, you know, is really strong on this one.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. What's the deal with this one?
That was one of those tunes where, and the guitar players may get this. I mean, sometimes guitar players talk about a different guitar having a different song in it. They'll pick up a guitar and be like, oh, that's got this song in it that just kind of comes out. And this one, the chord progression, I was reading some article about building chord progressions, and there was something in there about you should try this out of key chord. I forget what it was at the time without the guitar in my hand right now. But I was working through this chord progression and then just threw this quote unquote out of key chord in there that I had read about in some article. And then, I mean, within 20 minutes I'd written the song. It was one of that chord just unlocked, you know, the song in my mind. And so that was one of those ones that came out real quick. And you'll hear songwriters talk about songs that just sort of land in your lap that you feel like you almost didn't write, like it was just given to you. And that was one of those ones that felt like that. I didn't labor over it.
Well, it's a really strong song.
I sold the 427 big block and put mama's rings, daddy's gold watch and hawk. You lent me your money and I lifted your pills. It ran short on both halfway home from Slidell with nothing worth mention to sell. I was wrong. I see that now, and all I can hear the talk of the town. I was wrong, but I'm not too proud to plead for your pardon, 'cause I pushed you out, and I see that now. If any was too much, then too much weren't enough. And some things will draw a man harder than love. For what I've done right, honey, I couldn't say. I never gave you half a reason to stay. And cover rent I could not pay. I was wrong. I see that now, and all
Another one I wanted to ask you about was the song "Ain't No Trouble." So this one, I think, is one of the last two on the album.
Yeah.
And to me, this one, again, this is all about arrangement on this one. This one, I feel definitely can hear like kind of the gospel-y, gospel.
Oh, yeah.
Almost even bluegrass, in at times. But I like this song a lot too. What kind of was your thought process in writing this one?
It sort of harkens back to those old holy blues kind of songs. It's just a 3/4 time, simple chord progression. Nothing, the roots of the song, there's nothing too fancy in there. We fleshed it out with some background singers, and the production on that song there's percussion, but there's no drums. And so the percussion that we brought to this song was based in, have you ever seen, I think it was a touring show for a while, it may still be, called Stomp.
Yeah.
So my mother took me to see Stomp when I was probably 12 years old. And it's just always stuck with me. I thought it was so cool. Right. That they used brooms and matchboxes and all kinds of, random stuff to create this rhythm. And so I brought the idea to this song to sort of do that kind of production. And so the drums, quote unquote, on that song, there's a floor broom on the concrete floor. There's some chains in a wooden box. There's a bag of bottle caps. Just various stuff that Rye had in the studio there. Wow. That we sort of pieced together, sampled a couple of different things, and Rye calls it his rap track because it's got because
it's built on the rhythm.
It's got this beat that's just kind of built from samples and stuff. And then we had two background singers, two of Mike Ferris's background singers. It was Samson White and Quintarius Carruthers came in and they sang backup on it. And then the really cool thing, I think, in that song, what was fun for me was instead of an instrumental solo, the solo is an Eastern Kentucky preacher that I had tripped across on YouTube and saw this sermon that he gave, and it was full of fire. Uh-huh. And I said, I want to use that I want to sample that and put it in the song. And so I wrote his daughter a letter, and I said, "Can I use your dad's sermon in this song?" And she gave us permission to use it, and so we sampled that and put in Mr. Puckett's sermon as a solo.
That's another really cool just element to that song and again, I mean, it just adds a certain emotion and feeling to the song that just wouldn't be there without it.
Right.
Ain't no trouble gonna hold me down. Ain't no trouble gonna hold me down. World ain't no bother. I know my father's made room in his house. Ain't no trouble gonna hold me down. Moses, he walked right through the Red Sea. Moses, he walked right through the Red Sea. Showed the downhearted waters were parted, the people walked free. Moses walked right through the Red Sea. Lazarus, he walked right out of his grave. Lazarus, he walked right out of his grave. Jesus said, "Rise up, open your eyes up, child, and be saved." Lazarus, he walked walking with God.
That song feels very, very close to the ground, I guess, with all the, there's no fancy drums, and it's just a country preacher, but it's all kind of pieced together real. I mean, Rye did a fantastic job.
Yeah, and tell me about the producer. We haven't really talked about him yet.
So Rye Evans is he's from the West Coast, moved to Nashville, 15 years ago, something like that. Built a studio out behind his house, and he is a welder by day and a music producer, drummer. He drums on this record, and he was the drummer in the Bitter Swill. So he his day job is as a welder, and he makes music in his home studio at night and does a fantastic. It's a great studio he's got. Yeah, there's some mojo in that room for sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess the last song I wanted to just make sure that we covered is, and I'm not even sure how you say this. It's Old Saint Dymphna.
Dymphna, yeah.
Dymphna. Okay.
O Saint Dymphna is the name of that song.
Yeah, I don't know all my saints, so this one I didn't know. So
I didn't know this one either until I wrote the song. I'm not Catholic. I was raised Presbyterian, but I've had an affinity for, I like the icon artwork and the stories of the old saints. But that is the newest song on the record. So that one was written in 2018, I guess. Okay. 2019, just before we put the record out. It was the last song we recorded for the record. The version that's on the record was supposed to be the demo. I was struggling with some anxiety, some panic attacks that I was having. And so I started doing some research, and so Saint Dymphna is the patron saint of those with mental afflictions and suffering from depression and anxiety and stuff like that. I had written this song about, trying to come to terms with sort of a midlife crisis of sorts. I was in my, early 40s, and so I wrote this song, "O Saint Dymphna," and I went into Rye's studio and I said, "Hey, I've got this new tune I wrote." And I went into the studio and sat on the stool there. I had an office job at the time. And so I had come from the office to his studio, and I'm sitting there with my office clothes on. I said, okay, this is going to be the demo. He sets up the mics, and I play the song, and it's, it's real. It's raw. It's just me and an electric guitar. And I walked into the control room, and he said, "That's it." And I was like, no, that's just the demo of it. And he said, "You won't sing it like that again. That's the take." I still get chills when I think about it, but that was the demo that became the album version, which is far and away the most listened to song, at least online. That's the one that gets listened to the most, because I think people connect with the sort of visceral imagery in the song.
You're right. Yeah. Well, I think considering everything we've, as a culture, gone through over the last couple of years, it probably is one that people relate to a little bit better.
Yeah.
Don't I know you? Ain't we met? Still had hair at the time, girl, you dyed yours cherry red. Back when hangovers were easy, the music was loud. Before all the debt and regret and the letting our mamas down. Now we sit in a circle, talking it through. How it's like being weightless in water, calm in a bottomless blue. Send me a boat. I can't make the shoreline all alone. Keep me afloat. Oh, Saint Dymphna, roll my heart back home. My heart back home.
What guitar are you playing on that? Because it sounds like almost like a what is it, a Reichenbacker or Bacher? I used to say Rickenbacker, but I've been confused ever since I saw this interview with Tom Petty. And
what did he say?
I think it was Reichenbacker.
What?
Yeah.
It's news to me.
Yeah. Well, that's when it caught my eye. I was like, in my ear. I was like, whoa, what did he say?
Yeah.
I was like, and sure enough, if you look it up, like it'll tell you, like there's, I don't know what you call it, but you go up on the eye, like Reich.
I would never want to be on record saying Tom Petty was wrong about anything.
Well, there you go.
But I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me.
Have you always said Rickenbacker?
I've always said Rickenbacker.
Yeah, that's what everyone I've known has said. But Tom Petty doesn't. So,
so the guitar on that tune is it's an old archtop electric. It's a Stewart Oraphonic. It's like a 1950s mail order archtop. It's got a P90 in it, and so you're hearing I think it's a P90. I think we're going into like a Vox AC15 or something. Okay. But just a little bit of dirt on there. But yeah, the guitar.
Because I mean, obviously that's through the whole song, and then you build some other stuff on top of it. But just
minimally, there's a minimal amount of pedal steel put in there,
right?
And then Lauren again sings harmony on the chorus. But that's a really stripped down tune.
Yeah, well, and I think between the still, it just becomes this like really hauntingly beautiful song, and I really, it's one of the stronger moments on the record for sure.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, when the pedal steel player Wes Lang Lois came in there, the song has a lyric in there that says, "Oh Saint Dymphna, row my heart back home," and so it's talking about being in a rowboat. The pedal steel just has this swell up and down, so it feels liquid.
Yeah,
that was the intent with it.
I guess the only question I have left is what's next? When are you going to record something new? Because I mean,
it's been 2 years.
It has been. You're past the. There's a timeline where you have to do new stuff.
Yeah. I'm getting up on the expiration date of Blood and the Honey.
What about one song? What about just a single?
Well, I don't know. Ryan, I've talked about. I think what we're going to do next, or what I'm going to do next, is rather than a full length, we've talked about doing like a couple of 3-song EPs, just to kind of parse things out a little bit. But I just went into his studio 2 weekends ago to record some demos for the new stuff that I'm finally getting out there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, even if it's one song, when it's time to put it out, you make sure you let me know. We'll even you play a piece of it on the show and let everybody know you've got new stuff.
Absolutely. Certainly.
Well, man, listen, I'm not blowing smoke. Like I really was surprised by the record, and I really here's how you know that it's legit for me is I listen to a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff to do the club for sure.
I can see all the records around you. You got
so I listen to almost everything that's coming out if I don't know who it is, and if I know who it is, and we decide to put it, everything is custom curated. Like so, I listen to a lot of things, but your record for several days it was all I listened to, and that is very rare.
Nice.
I just really, really enjoyed it. And so I was super excited that you were willing to come on to the show and talk about it. So yeah, I mean, definitely keep us posted with what's going on, and we'll talk about your new stuff when it comes out.
Sounds good. Thanks. It's been an absolute honor to be on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Storm blowing heavy, comes snowing in the Dell, snowing now for days without a stop. Remember these hours when seed is in the field, and we cannot even call down a drop.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our LP interview with Trapper Haskins and our discussion on his album, Blood and the Honey. Don't forget, it's our October Singer-Songwriter Record of the Month, and Trapper has autographed all the copies for our members. So head to blindtigerrecordclub.com. You can find out how you can get this album, as well as how to become a member and get vinyl like this delivered right to your door every month. You can also shop in our record store where we literally have thousands of titles available. We also have tapes, accessories, turntables, and of course, you need to check out all of our BTRC merch. We have t-shirts, slip mats, vinyl messenger bags, stickers. We even have a shirt for this very podcast, which is a great way to show your support for the show. You can also sign up for Tiger Bucks. Tiger Bucks are points that you earn when you shop in our store. You can redeem your Tiger Bucks for cash that you can use when you make a purchase. You do not have to be a member to earn Tiger Bucks. All you've got to do is sign up. Don't forget about our annual Rocktober sale. All of our rock, alternative, and metal vinyl, they're all marked down 15% all the way through Halloween. Make sure you check out our sponsor, 85 Supply. They can help you with everything from printed t-shirts to custom products. You can get all your merchandise service needs met with one company from design to print. Listeners of this show get 5% off your first order. Simply mention Blind Tiger Record Club via email or over the phone with your rep. The whole process is very simple. Go to 85supply.com or email info@85supply.com for more information. Hey, make sure that you have followed the show because we have a special episode coming out next week, right before Halloween. You can also check out our past seasons of the show at the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast. It's available on all major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Audible, as well as many others. You can also go to blindtigerrecordclub.com and click on the podcast link to stream directly from our website. Even if you're not a member of the Blind Tiger Record Club, the podcast is a great way to discover new music. So smash the like buttons, leave reviews and comments, tell your friends about the show. You can stay up to date on all that we're doing by signing up to our email list at our website. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Most importantly, keep coming back. You really do support this show just by listening. I'm David Williams, and on behalf of all of us here at the Blind Tiger Record Club, thanks for listening. Until next time, keep the wax spinning.